Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigor Mortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have Notes by Won't Think Straight.
We always have notes.
Yeah, I got a thing, a little bit when we go into actual thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we're covering yet another part of the Won't Think Straight saga. This one's going to be called Notes. So you can check the story out on Reddit NoSleep by just looking up Notes or Won't Think Straight. So all the Won't Think Straight stories are archived up there, on Reddit NoSleep, so you can check that. Before we get too far ahead, let's give our initial recommendations. I'm going to recommend it.
I'm going to partially recommend it.
I'll recommend it.
Okay. Well, let's find out why we gave those recommendations, starting with the rundown. And this one's a bit of an iffy. So this is another story picked up by Nair from Brad of the previous story involving the whole time bridge and such.
Mm-hmm.
But this didn't happen to Brad. This happened to his cousin or cousins.
They were getting a few levels removed.
Yeah. We thought the ant thing was bad. So yeah, this time around the story is from Brad's or it happened to Brad's cousins. And of course the names have been altered for privacy reasons and such. So the cousins had a daughter, Emily, who was very introverted and quiet, had been for since she was about 5 or 6. And really only playing with herself and not really having any friends whatsoever, despite their attempts to try and help socialize her. And nothing seemed to really work as a result. When Emily was 6, she started saying things, things that of events that would happen, like bad things that would happen usually, and they'd usually happen shortly after she prophesized them. Like a store burned down that they were just visiting, hours later. She knew when their dog would be hit by a car, and things like that. The big one that kind of made her parents the most worried, though, was that Emily knew or prophesized that she would not live to see her 12th birthday. And sure enough, shortly before her birthday, she passed away from an aneurysm. So credits. No, not yet. The strangeness continued after death, because sometime after her death, the parents started finding blue inked messages on bits of paper from Emily that she had left in the house when she was alive, just tucked away and hidden. At first, the parents took comfort from these messages, as they were Emily kind of there were messages of Emily assuring her parents that she loved them, and they were very kind of wholesome kind of messages. But that all changed when the Fire Nation attacked. I mean, when the red inked messages started popping up, and they started finding notes.
Blue normally.
Yeah. They were odd and cryptic messages compared to the previous ones. They were also seemed to be revolving around her uncle Scott. Eventually, they found some more of these notes in her room, and the last one of which, or it all seemed to culminate to making somebody pay. That's when Scott came over, and he had been doing so for the last little while, check on the parents and stuff to see how they were doing. And they finally told him about the notes that Emily had left and such. And so he decided to go and check Emily's room. And that's when things took a further turn. The door slammed shut and would not open, no matter how hard the parents tried. And screams, growling, and commotion, and a really nasty commotion could be heard from within, specifically the screams of Uncle Scott. Emily's parents were rightfully concerned at this point. Like they were trying to open the door, they couldn't, and all they're hearing is this horrible noise from the room. Eventually, things got quiet. Wow, I think I had to try. I tried to save that thing because I was saying like I thought it said quite. Eventually, things got quiet in the room, and the door opened, where Scott was in a fetal position in a disaster of a room, and sobbing, ready to confess something. It turns out Uncle Scott had been sexually abusing Emily since she was 5. That's when things started to click for the parents about the red inked messages. They were messages about this horrible dark secret that Emily couldn't bring up to them in life. So Uncle Scott was arrested, rightfully so, and the parents eventually found closure regarding Emily's death and these horrible circumstances a few months after these events. Until they found one last note in red ink, which read, "See you soon, Finn." So that was the rundown for notes. But yeah, I guess we'll move on. So with the rundown out of the way, I suppose we'll move on to everyone tolerates the grammar inquisitions at this point. And I've got a couple. So I'll start with this one here. Puzzled, they added it to box. I think you need the in there. Puzzled, they added it to the box.
I did not even catch that. They added it to box. You're right.
Yeah. Little caveman writing, caveman speech.
It happens.
Yeah, no, it's a very common thing. We jest about like, it's a caveman speech. Well, it's like, dude, like this shit happens all the time. Like I write shit too, believe it or not, and like that's why editing's so helpful for shit you missed. So, but yeah, I'll move on to the next thing I have. In the morning, they found their back door lock broken. So on the surface, it doesn't seem any bad, but like I feel like maybe you could potentially correct this, because like in the morning, the lock on their back door was broken.
Yeah, I prefer that. Yeah,
yeah, because
like, you're right. It's not technically bad. It's not technically wrong, but it flows better the way that you rewrote it.
Yeah. And then the next one. A few weeks passed, and they uncover the next red ink note behind a photo on the mantelpiece. So mantelpiece is spelled MANTLEPIECE, which is technically not the correct wording or the correct spelling. It actually should be MANTELPIECE. Like just the L and the E were in the wrong spot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I'll move on to the next one I have here. At that moment, the doorbell rang as Scott paid his regular visit. So doorbell should be one word, like a compound word. And my last one is Emily's parents rushed to the room, but nothing they could do would open the door. So parents has a possessive like apostrophe between parent and S, and it really should be the plural for parents, not the possessive of parents. So get rid of that apostrophe.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But that is my grammar inquisition. So Mikey, the E stands for evil. What do you have?
I have a conjunction junction.
All right. And next stop, conjunction junction. Doot, doot.
It's about his cousins and the tragic tale of their daughter, Emily. As per usual, all names have been changed to protect their privacy. But she seemed happiest when she was alone, playing with her dolls. And, deep down, Emily's parents felt it too. It didn't help that the few times that Emily spoke, it would be about events in the future. And they always seemed to come true. It broke her parents' hearts to watch her playing alone with her dolls. It took several weeks for her parents to pull themselves back together enough to continue with their lives. It's not your fault. But there was one note they found that seemed out of place. It was then they noticed that all the red ink letters were torn were torn from the same complete sheet of paper. It's been several months since that day, and no more notes have shown up. Finn.
Wow.
Like on the start of that, it's saying like, basically all the names have been changed to protect their identities. But it immediately goes into a but. So it's like,
But
they changed all the names, but
the name was
I
still
really
Emily.
like playing with the toys, so we didn't change the names. These are their actual names.
Yeah.
Yeah, weird stuff like that happens when you read a story that is filled with sentences that start with words that they probably shouldn't, like its, ands, or buts, because there's always better words to use.
And it also seemed kind of funny that her playing with her dolls broke her parents' heart,
Yeah.
and it took
Like,
I
several
didn't
weeks
catch
for
that.
it to recover.
oh god, this is the secret horrible like spin-off to Boy, which is the horror movie about like the like life-sized like doll boy
Really?
that's in a that like has to be taken care of by a nanny sort of character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I guess we'll move on to the grammar in Yellow with the Gamer.
No, we're not.
Cool. All right, let's move on to the to actual thoughts, or as Gamer in Yellow likes to call it, notes. So we're just recursively like just notes about notes.
Yeah, I
today.
have notes. Do you have notes?
I have notes.
Sorry, it's notes actually.
Yeah, notes. Yes. So I'm going to start with this one here. For the first couple of years, her parents thought it might just be a phase of natural shyness. But as the years went by, they started to worry about her social awkwardness. They tried enrolling her in different classes and getting her involved in sports. They sacrificed their time and precious savings doing what they could to help her make friends. Okay, so given the context about the weirdness and also the creepiness that we get later on, this is very understandable, like what's going on with her and such. But I feel like the parents might have been going about it the wrong way. Like instead, it doesn't specifically say like what they're doing to help her, like but like it says like they spend their time and money trying to help her make friends with like going to different classes and going to sports and so that. They really should have just taken the poor girl to fucking therapy. Like that's usually like the better option to do. Like if your kid is like if you're worried about your kid, is to like have them like checked and such, or like I that's how I feel. Like if
it doesn't say that they didn't.
It doesn't say that they didn't, but because it was that kind of vague, I kind of feel like they should have. But
yeah, it wasn't vague enough to be like, okay, they probably did this, but it wasn't like specific enough to say that they did.
Yeah,
kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just like like there's like, oh, they spent all this time and money like taking her, like trying to get her enrolled in sports and stuff like that. It's like, really, the girl the story probably could have like we wouldn't have a story obviously if this had happened, but like just take her to like a kids therapy session or something like that, just and like maybe they can like get like they can kind of help her with the trauma that she's experiencing and shit, and maybe even learn the truth early on, so that we don't have to, so that they don't have to have all the horrible shit revealed later. But then again, we wouldn't have a story otherwise. So
you would like it better if either A, they specifically say she went to therapy and we tried getting her in different classes and stuff like that, but nothing helped. Or you would prefer it if they just said we tried everything we could to help her, but nothing seemed to work. Because if it's that vague, you can extrapolate that means potentially therapy and all these other things as well.
Yeah, because even like and like therapy usually help, or like I feel like therapy would usually help in that kind of circumstance, but also like kids sometimes like it's sometimes kids are hard nuts to crack in even like when they're being during like therapy sessions of that. So like the truth of the horrible thing might not have even happened like during the therapy session. So then like that's because it's such a horrible traumatic thing. So like it may not have helped, but it would. But just to have it like maybe be like brought up that they tried that,
they at
like,
least tried,
yeah. And like obviously they like the parents aren't Derplanders, like they are. It's just the way the story was written. It kind of felt like they were looking at it the wrong way. Yeah. But I'll move on to the next thing I have here. Sure enough, shortly before her 12th birthday, Emily suffered a brain aneurysm that she never recovered from. She was in a coma for several days before dying in hospital with her weeping parents at her bedside. Credits, right? Wow, that was a really short short story, like clocked in at just about a page. Really succinct creepypasta. And of course, yeah, there's more. Like another 3 pages worth, according to Google Docs. But it really felt like this was where like the story could have ended if you want just like a mini pasta.
That's where most stories would have ended. Yeah,
just like this kid foretelling like weird stuff, like weird stuff, and being kind of introverted, and then foretelling her own death, and then her death comes true. Like, but yeah, no, the fact the stuff that we get more was actually like kind of cool and creepy as well. Like the like specifically the notes stuff, like the notes that she left around for her parents.
Yeah, but stop there. It's like, why was it called notes?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Shouldn't it have been called like predictions?
Yeah.
But I'll move on to the next thing. Actually, it's kind of tied to the fact her whole like leaving notes for her parents and such. Knowing she was going to die, Emily had hidden dozens of messages for her parents to find over the years as reminders of her, saying all the things she couldn't seem to when she was alive. Each note her parents found was treasured and lovingly collected and stored in a heavy wooden box. Man, this is getting like all levels of like tragic, wholesome, and bittersweet. It's like almost like a wholesome horror in a way, but like because like it's like the kid is dead and like but she's left a bunch of notes, kind of thing for her parents, like post-mortem to find. It's like, but I was like left was like, when's the creepiness gonna drop? Moving on. But there was one note they found that seemed out of place. While it seemed to be in her handwriting, unlike the others, it was unsigned and used a blood red ink. There it is. Also, one thing I might add to the story to like maybe that could maybe have elevated the story, and of course this is format permitting, given where it's being like posted and such. But like maybe make the lines that are supposed to be in like red ink, red, and then make any mention, like make any of the lines or messages that were in blue ink notes blue in the story. Just sort of like I don't know if that's something you could do on like Reddit NoSleep, like in like a Reddit post and stuff. If you can actually add like have them be different colors, but like I just think that might elevate the narrative a little bit, or like the presentation a bit.
Yeah, if you can do that, I don't know. All I know is when you have a link, it shows up blue, but they're not going to specifically make all those links just for that.
Yeah. I'll move on to the next thing I have here. Only Scott's quiet wailing could be heard as the door opened normally. He was lying in a fetal position, rocking backwards and forwards, whilst repeating, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Scott would never speak of what happened in that room, but he later confessed to having sexually abused Emily since she was 5. Yeah, I had suspicions of this turn up when the red ink notes started. Like the first one that said like Uncle Sam in red notes, or Uncle Sam, Uncle Scott popped up as like the first note in red ink. I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those, isn't it? And then
you caught that immediately.
So this is
you're either like, real smart or I'm real dumb.
Well, I'm also genre savvy, and like because I was suspicious of that. Like I had my suspicions about it like from the first note. But then as it kept going, I kind of just brushed it aside until this part where it all but confirms what's happening. And then when you think back through the story, I can see the same kind of like story beats that I've seen in a bunch of other horror media and fiction of a young character either using preternatural abilities or as a ghost after they've died to seek a retribution or revenge on a horrible act that was caused by a supposed loved one or trusted person, which was committed upon them, and then they kept it secret in life, kind of thing. It's a very common trope I've seen in like a bunch of horror movies and such. And I mean, it's done well here. It's just like I'm very shocked. I guess I'm just genre savvy as a result of it. Being like a common trope. So it's like, yeah, I kind of saw that coming. But yeah, it's like not a bad thing. Like in terms of like a story, it's not a bad thing. It's just like something I've seen before a bunch. And I mean, again, this story kind of like blends it well with like, because for me, the story does well with the combining that with the letters from the to the parents and stuff. Like kind of. We kind of get that be like sort of a melancholy, like sad, but like kind of hopeful kind of horror. Like, oh, she's sending these like post-mortem messages to her parents about like that she like telling them things that she wasn't able to tell them in life, kind of thing. And then we get the real horror with the red notes, where it's just like a horrible like truth that has to be realized by the end of the story. Mm-hmm. So I mean, like. Narratively and like writing wise, it's really well done. It's just it's a common and sad trope.
Yes.
But I'll move on to the next thing here. And actually, this is getting close to the last one I have. It's been several months since that day, and no more notes have shown up. Emily's parents found some level of comfort and closure to their grief. Until a few days ago, when they found a new note under a rug in red ink. See you soon. Oof. I actually got chills when I read that.
Me too, honestly.
First time I was like, oh, because like I took it two ways. Like first off, I took it this way. Like the ending is both creepy and a little bit in a way bittersweet. Like it's initially I thought it was like clearly foretelling that the parents were going to die, but at least they'll see their child soon, like kind of silver lining kind of thing.
Yeah, I saw that both of the parents will be dying very soon.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be some house fire and they're going to die or they're going to get in a car crash.
Yeah, exactly. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Alternatively, though, it could, because it was in red ink, like all the other ones that had to do with Scott, maybe this is like Uncle Scott is going to die, like probably in prison or something like that. And she'll see him in hell kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, actually.
Like, that's what I was thinking too, because I feel like this honestly, like, as I was putting my notes down, I was like, oh wait, what if that's not the parents like that are like that this is toward, because it's in red ink? Like, wouldn't it have been in blue ink if it was to the parents?
Yeah, it's less creepy now though.
Yeah, I know, because like right, because like when you first read it, you kind of get the implication. Especially from the buildup that like from like the previous two sentences, like everything, like they finally got some comfort and closure from their grief until a few days ago when they found a new note under a rug in red ink. See you soon. Like that gives you chills. Like that's creepy, and like it's like, oh, what do you mean? it's that Padme and Anakin thing. It's like, see you soon. It's like, we're gonna see you at the we're gonna visit your gravestone at the cemetery, right? And it's like Anakin looking at her. It's like, we're gonna visit you at the gravestone, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, no, you're probably gonna die, and you'll see your daughter soon, which again can be kind of bittersweet, because it's like, yes, you're going to die, but at least you'll be with your family or with the family member that's dead as well.
Yeah,
kind of thing. So it's like depending on what you believe, of course, also, but like, yeah, like that can kind of be a sort of a silver lining kind of thing, or like kind of a bittersweet ending. But then if you take it like if you connect the dots further from like the red inked notes from previous, is like, is this message actually toward Uncle Scott in prison?
Yeah,
because I mean, a lot of child molesters and stuff like that in prison end up getting shanked and killed by other prisoners, because even other prisoners are like, fuck that noise.
Yes.
Yeah. So, that I thought that was kind of interesting, and then it also just kind of like it's also. I guess you could also take it kind of creepy. It's like, why'd you say see you soon? It's like, well, I'll see you in hell, motherfucker. It's like, so that means that Emily's also in hell.
Oh yeah, it's true. Well, that's basically saying that there's no like hell or heaven. It's just there's the afterlife, and they're both going to be there.
Yeah, that's true. Because these also aren't like ghosts, like ghost messages. Like these are messages she left in life, like in preparation for her death. Right. So, but yeah, I honestly think that's kind of creepier. Like the that like the notes were left pre-mortem, like for post-mortem viewing kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, they're messages that are being left by a ghost, because this way, like the way it is, like if it's like her knowing that she's going to die, so she leaves a bunch of these messages and these truths and such. It's sort of like it never addresses the idea of like an afterlife.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
But I mean there is a ghost scenario here, because I mean, in Emily's room.
Yeah, that's true. There is like this weird. There is a weird supernatural, like, well, I mean, there's already a supernatural element with like her foreseeing the future events and stuff. But there's even a further like element with that, with what happens to Uncle Scott in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Unless he just had like a psychotic episode, from going into that room, and then like that was all him. That's just like.
Yeah, because he wasn't wounded or nothing. There wasn't a giant monster that came out there and beat the shit out of him because he was taken to prison.
Yeah, but that feels like it could be more grounded in like a reality of like, or like a more realistic type of haunting kind of thing as well. But it also could just be psychological. Like again, he just had a psychotic episode as he was faced with the horrible shit he did, and being in her room again and like seeing the messages, because maybe the message on the door was left there, but then again, like also the door was like mysteriously like would not open, and even when it was like unlocked, or like it was even when it opened normally, he didn't just like quickly unlock the door and then like go into a fetal position in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
So yeah, like there is definitely a supernatural element. You're right, Mikey, with that. So yeah, I don't know. It to me it works both ways. Like for the creepiness factor by the end, and it adds this like kind of more like kind of grounded, for me anyways, like a more grounded like paranormal vengeance kind of plot, because it's like we don't we hear things, we don't see things, which is a lot of the time what ends up happening in I do in quotes real world accounts of hauntings and ghosts tormenting the living. So yeah. So but yeah, regardless of that fact, yeah, the ending definitely gave me chills, and I really dug it for that, like kind of last sentence, like kind of zinger. So but that is my actual thoughts. So Mikey, these stands for evil.
All right. Just do. So the ending of "See You Soon," because we get the supernatural element earlier, it could be that she's going to see her parents in ghost form.
Yeah.
So it's not that scary if you think it that way, but
it's
obviously
like
the first thing.
Sorry.
Yeah. But the first thing you think is that the parents are going to die.
Yeah, like that's the horror element of it. And then like if you think about it a little bit longer, it's like, well, I mean, like, yeah, they die, but like they're at least going to see their child again. Like that's that you can take some, again, depending on what your belief system is, like you can take some solace from that.
Yeah,
it's kind of a wholesome horror, except for the whole like Uncle Scott thing.
Yeah.
Well, and the whole sadness of the Emily having a brain aneurysm and dying. It's like,
yeah.
But everything else, super wholesome.
Yeah, but like the whole yeah, like the events are under like honestly that's like the more of the horror element, and then like the wholesome horror comes from like all these messages she left for her parents after she when she knew she was going to die. Like that's the wholesome horror. It's because it's like it's tragic, it's bittersweet, but there's a melancholy to it. Like they're getting like she's trying to help her parents get some closure or some comfort after she passed. Even though it's kind of macabre and creepy in that in how it was implemented.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Well, yeah. And then so yeah, it's to me a sad story because of the whole scenario of the uncle doing stupid stuff and the daughter dying because of a brain aneurysm, and then the parents get to die soon too.
Lots of death happening.
Yeah.
So
lots
I
of
mean,
terribleness.
everybody dies. So yeah. All right, my next actual thought here. I feel there was a missed opportunity near the end. And it comes from it was then they noticed that all the red ink letters were torn from the same complete sheet of paper. And then it lists the notes, but the thing is, nothing comes of that. There could have been a hidden message on the other side that when you put them all together.
Yeah.
But as far as it stands, like there's no reason that it has to come from the same sheet of paper.
Yeah. I had this like this horrible idea for like what could be on the other side, like as a message. It could be like a printout of a photo of Uncle Scott and her, and it's just been like ripped up.
Oh, like on the back of it?
Yeah, that would be so fucking like dark though.
Yeah. I mean, it's already pretty fucking dark.
It's already pretty fucked up and dark, but like I feel like that if you're gonna have like a secret message on the other side, it's like, yeah, what if this was like what if the notes were put on like she printed out a photo of her of a picture of her and her uncle, and then just tore that up and used those pieces of paper for the red ink messages. Like, God, that would be so fucked up. Oh, ugh.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the end of my actual thoughts.
All right. And then I guess we move on to Gamer.
Okay. Yeah, my first note is just literally when it drops that the creepiest thing that she told them was that she knew that she was going to die before she was 12. Like, as soon as I read that, I'm like, this is fucking dark. Like, her parents... Yeah. That was part of the DC universe. But, like, her parents, as skeptic as they might be to all this shit that's happening, have been seeing, like, all of this happening, all her, like, fortunes, like, being foretold and all these things actually coming true. Yeah. So, at this point, they gotta believe her to an extent that this is actually gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because, like, it kind of talked like they were... There was a few instances where they're saying, like, oh, that's a coincidence, blah, 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 blah. It's not.
I mean, again, denial ain't just a river in Egypt. Like, people love to deny, like, certain things and chalk it up to coincidence. So, case in point, Mikey. No.
Oh, yeah, and actually, speaking of, when I mentioned coincidence things, they're finding all the notes. This is all happy and nice, and they find the red one that says Uncle Scott, and then knock, knock, knock. Uncle Scott's at the door.
Yeah.
And then it specifically says they smiled and put it down to coincidence. Like, how could you? How could you possibly do that, knowing what your daughter could do, and like how perfect that timing is?
Well, maybe they thought like maybe it was a mess. Maybe they thought it's like, well, like maybe Uncle Scott, like it was just starting to either they were thinking like, oh, well, maybe just like chalked up to like foretelling that like Uncle Scott's going to arrive at the door, or like, oh no, what's going to happen to Uncle Scott, like kind of thing. Because at that point they don't know his dark secret. So it's like, but yeah, it kind of like, I feel like maybe another thing that could have been added to this is like if the red her writing in this one was a lot more like jagged and like violent, kind of, or angry. It's like Uncle Scott.
I mean, it's red.
It is in red, and it is, but it's also in her handwriting from like the blue notes and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, I guess it's trying to use the color like kind of coding more than like a more dramatic styling for the writing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But yeah, they should have been suspicious of Uncle Scott from like the first note. Sorry.
I mean, maybe, but yeah. Either way, speaking of the red notes, I didn't, like I chimed in earlier, I didn't clue in that they were actually spelling like a sentence or like telling a message with all of them. So I really liked the reveal of that when that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, even when like, I mean, I had an idea, I had an inkling of what was going on, but even like at the end, like when you get all of them run down, it's like that was a nice like kind of thing, and then you could think back on like, oh, that's what that was all foreshadowing for what's happening now.
Yeah. He's pretty neat. And then, yeah, literally the only thing I have left is just the "see you soon" thing gave me chills. Like,
yeah,
which I already said. So yeah, I guess that's all for my notes on notes. That's all my notes.
Wow. So yeah, I guess we'll move on to final thoughts. It's gonna be a short one, guys.
It tends to happen when like most of us like or at least partially like it.
Yeah,
there's more to talk about when there's stuff to complain about. I guess.
Right, and I hate that like it's like, I mean, it's not even that we also didn't like, we also like brought up what we liked about this story. So it's like not even that like, it's just we have more to say with words when it comes to like stuff that's wrong with the story kind of thing. So
because when there's something wrong with the story, but we like the premise of the story, then we think of ways to make it better, which that's why we're talking about a whole bunch of different things. But when the story's already good the way it is, like
there's no conflict. Like, there's no mental conflict, and there's no like, well, let's try and figure out how we resolve this conflict, like, through words. So yeah, I get it. It's just like but yeah, I guess on to final thoughts. So yeah, I'm going to still recommend this one. It uses a common traumatic narrative of horror with a dash of like cathartic post-mortem paranormal justice, it seems. That aspect really helps up the creepiness factor, and it blends well, at least I think, with the sort of whimsical, wholesome horror of finding messages and notes left behind by a dead daughter. Like, that could who could foretell the future or future events and stuff like that. So it was like it blended well, I think, like through overall, like blending this kind of like horror, this horror of like that's like whimsical and like melancholy of like the messages from a daughter who died, who could foretell like things and stuff like that, but then like bleeds into this like much more skeevy real world like horror of childhood abuse.
Yeah.
That comes to light post-mortem, and it reminds me of movies like Stir of Echoes and those kind of movies where it's like the ghost or the dead are trying to resolve something that happened to them in life, and like trying to basically tell the living who the perpetrators were. It's like that kind of melancholy horror. And like usually I find those very sad, and actually I don't care to watch those like for fun, but like as far as this story goes, as part of this like collection of weird stories for the Won't Think Straight saga, I think it works because it's again one of those things that's kind of like weirder than fiction, or like just weird shit happening that Won't Think Straight is like coming to terms with now as he hears these tales. So yeah, I'll recommend this one still. Mikey, these stands for evil.
Well, I found this story more, like I said, sad than creepy.
Yeah.
It did have creepy elements, like the uncle. It had supernatural elements because she could predict the future down to the note. Because basically whenever the parents were cleaning and they'd find a note, then something would happen. So it's knowing exactly when the parents would be cleaning.
Yeah, exactly. Like she's using her precog abilities, like pre-death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like that portion is neat. Is it creepy though? Not really.
It falls in like it depends on the person, and it kind of I feel like it falls in like a macabre line, but it's like
Yeah.
you're either gonna find it creepy or you're not gonna find it creepy, or you're just gonna find it sad.
Well, like I find the precognition cool.
Yeah.
But it's sad because she dies from a brain aneurysm. Like
And she knew when she was going to die. Like she knew she was going to die from it. So she's going yeah.
Well, but then the thing that is always an issue is like how come she didn't try to figure out why she was going to die? She just knew she was going to, but it didn't seem like she fought to live type thing.
Well,
she knew what it was. It's a brain aneurysm. What's she going to do about it?
Yeah.
Well, but it's a question of did she know it was a brain aneurysm? Because
that's true. Because like, it might have been just like she knew that like that place was going like that. The faces in that doll shop were melting, but she didn't know why. And then they found it like because of wiring, it burned down, or like she knew their dog was going to get hit by a car, but like she may not have known like which car or like exactly what day, but she knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like it's left vague enough that it's like, yeah, does she know? And this also kind of falls into like when you're like a kid and stuff like that, you're also kind of helpless. So it's like, and she was already kind of in a weird like traumatic state as it was because of like what had been happening to her. So maybe she was just like, thank God, peace. Like sweet relief of death. Like it could be that like she could have just like honestly from her trauma of like being sexually abused, it could have just been like maybe she was like she didn't want to try and stop what was going to happen to her.
Yeah.
Like her death and such. I mean, it's sort of a thing. It's like it's sort of a fear of helplessness, or like not fear of helplessness. It's like it drags on the horror of helplessness or just acceptance. And even like if she can tell the future and like maybe she can't stop events, so like maybe it's all preordained, so it's like that kind of existential horror of like free will doesn't exist. Like we just got to go through the motions kind of thing.
Yeah, so as it stands, I'm still only going to give this a partial recommendation.
All right, fair. And gamer.
Well, for me, I like the read. Honestly, it's one of the better stories we've read in a long time, I think. At least for me personally. Because I like the way that this was taken with Emily's abilities. Like using them even past her own death. Like that's where the creepiness comes in. Like even the like wholesome part of leaving notes everywhere, it's still done with a creepy tint to it all, you know?
Yeah.
Which I liked. And then even more so when the red ones showed up and we find out the reason why she was like so messed up in the first place. Yeah. Muy no bueno.
No, not a fan.
But as a way to show horror and creepiness and fear in a story, it worked well. So I don't condone it, obviously, but
yeah, like creative in terms of the story, in terms of like a creepypasta that we're reading. That's what we don't condone, or that's what we don't like it's good for the story. I mean, it's shitty, absolutely. Like you want to kill the people that do this kind of thing to kids.
Yes,
in real life, but like in terms of a horror, like a story, like horror is often used for like as like a form of catharsis to get back at those kind of situations. So
yes,
or to process.
And while this one is technically skeevy a little bit because of that, it doesn't have the same skeevy levels of other previous stories that we've read that I like couldn't get into because of how much skeeve there was. So yeah, I like this one.
Okay. Well, I guess that will do it for this week's episode. So two full recommendations and one partial recommendation. Honestly, I was kind of on the fence early, like when I was reading this, because like I was kind of with Mikey on this. It's like it's only like partially creepy, except for like, but like ultimately I went with the like with a full recommendation because it's like it's a really well written like melancholy horror story.
Yeah,
but so go with that with you will, based off our opinions and such and how you align with our views as always. And that'll do it for this week's episode. So if you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted. We're all on Twitter. Mikey is at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W at the end because the name is very long.
Yeah.
And I'm at Review Cultist. I'm also on Blue Sky, so you can check me out there. And if you want to send us emails, you can go to aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooky things. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah! And if you'd like to help support our show financially, you can go to Patreon. Select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tiers with special episodes, early access, and extra content. To all our patrons helping support the show, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. And as always, we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you immensely, because without your listenership, it'd be like screaming into the void. And without your stories that you write and post online, we really wouldn't have much of a show because we'd have nothing to talk about. So thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. E stands for evil.
And I'm the Gamer in Yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigamortis. Sleep well. So, guys, I may have made a mistake regarding just how many stories there are in the Won't Think Straight saga.
Oh,
you know how I said there was 11?
Sure.
Well, I recently, when I was tracking this story down for like to read it and such, I actually found that there's like a whole like listing on Reddit NoSleep for like the archived stories of the Won't Think Straight saga.
Mm-hmm.
There's currently 18.